All right, let's get going then. So welcome and thank you for spending your time with us. This webinar is being recorded and will be made available for playback at evolv.ai. All lines have been muted to ensure an optimal experience for everyone. Make sure to set your Zoom to speaker view role to see all speakers as well as the slides. And also, please use the chat to ask questions, which we will answer at the end of the webinar. So let's get started. I'm going to introduce the speakers for today's webinar. With us is Alexander Michael. He heads up Frost & Sullivan's digital transformation consulting business. Alex is focused on helping clients optimize their customer experience using game-changing technology. He currently spearheads Frost & Sullivan's research initiative into practical use cases for and how to make money with artificial intelligence. So thank you, Alex, for being with us today and sharing your insights. We really appreciate it. Also with us today are Michael Scharf, the CEO and co-founder of Evolv, Steve Bamberger, President and COO, and Tyler Foster, the Chief Technology Officer and co-founder of Evolv as well. So with that, we will get started right away and take it away, Alex.
Thank you. So I'm wearing an orange t-shirt, and this is in protest against the picture you just saw. So basically the people at Frost & Sullivan who deal with our pictures decided to make one available that makes me look like a retired bank manager from Dorian, Connecticut, but I'm really not. I'm very passionate about this subject, and when I started preparing for this webinar, I had the ambition to not mention the C word at all, but it just kept coming back to haunt me, and I figured, I'd get it over with right off the bat. So we need to shake off COVID. This tired, lethargic state a lot of businesses have been in is over. Now, I spent a lot of time engaging with and advising end-user organizations about technology applications to customer journeys, and I like to monitor things like contact center volume, which are kind of a more immediate indicator of activity than revenue. And we've all experienced, everyone's experienced really unpredictable volume shifts, but everyone's volumes are almost back to normal levels. And it means that now is the time to get back to basics. Naturally, it would be a big mistake to forget to capture all the lessons learned, because we need to apply them to future emergencies, and there will be a future emergency. Now, what have we learned? We have learned that there are serious strategy implications. It's not going to be acceptable in the future to be inadequately prepared. Now, when COVID first hit, most CX executives experienced a grace period of approximately 2 months. It was like customers relaxed expectations and they were super patient. And many brands did use COVID as an easy excuse, but almost all thought leaders agree that customers have lost patience and normalized their expectations to pre-COVID levels. So brands can no longer operate in crisis mode, and Frost & Sullivan believes that there will not be another grace period. So when we start to execute on new strategies, we'll realize that a lot of customer-facing processes are really old. Like in my practice, I regularly see 30-year-old processes that no one's bothered to rewrite because they kind of work. It's just that old processes just don't lend themselves to digital technology. You need to re-engineer them to avoid subjecting customers to problems that have no solution. And I'm saying this because however impressed I am with Evolv, and no matter how strongly I feel Evolv's value proposition to be a complete no-brainer, not even Evolv is going to be the cure for everything that ails you. So there is a real danger to standing still, to becoming irrelevant to customers, to partners and employees, adding no value, kind of living off previous glory and brand strength for a while, because really everything can go bust. And I could just rattle off names here: Kodak, Toys R Us, Swiss Air, which was the real wake-up call here in England. That is the cost of doing nothing going bust, basically, because this is the era of the customer experience. And if you remember, if anyone read business at university, you know that there was the traditional marketing mix and the 4 Ps, and they're just all perceived as the same by customers now. And when that happens, it is the customer experience that allows us to differentiate. And so I tend to add some extra Ps, and not least security, which has become hugely important as a component of differentiation, except security doesn't start with a P, so I say posture instead. So a couple of years ago, the World Economic Forum talked about how this was the 4th industrial revolution, and they meant that technology and data were embedded in everything, were pervasive, disrupting business and subverting societies. And when you think about all the previous industrial revolutions, they've always been about the product somehow, you know, how it was made, how it was distributed, but now it's about data, which means that customer experiences are increasingly digital, and optimizing the digital customer experience has become essential to growth and to the survival of any organization. Now, Frost & Sullivan has been observing for some time that organizations kind of overthink optimization projects and fail to address the obvious hitches. And it's usually a good idea to start close to home with existing business, kind of eliminating anxiety-inducing processes and taking friction out of customer journeys by focusing on something as simple as web or app interfaces. That usually provides an immediate, excellent outcome for a pretty minimal investment. So you need to deal with leakages. We advise that organizations fix revenue leakages before launching major business development projects. And in many low-margin industries, revenue leakages really frequently mean the difference between profit and loss. And you know, in sectors that primarily rely on online sales, conversion failure is the most severe source of leakage. And really, online experiences leak far too many customers, and online conversion is a fraction of offline or in-store conversion. That is really a problem the economy cannot afford to ignore. So according to Statista, the 2019 online shopping cart abandonment rate was almost 70% and growing, meaning that businesses failed to convert upwards of $5 trillion. Now, Frost & Sullivan estimates that cart abandonment has increased even further during the COVID-19 emergence. Oops, I said the C word again, didn't I? During the COVID-19 emergence, because companies had not optimized the digital experience for maybe older customers who were suddenly forced to shop online. And really many businesses took their eye off the CX ball because they kind of experienced a significant boost in online revenue anyway, which gave them, I think you can call it a kind of a false sense of confidence, and you know, they just did nothing. But brands will experience lasting damage if they fail to optimize online customer journeys continuously. Now, this is all because behavior has changed. Customer behavior has become convenience-driven. It is context-driven, and customers change personae dynamically based on context. And channel use is also dynamic. You know, and we need to understand where the customer is now in real time, and we need to act on that information. So, you know, these personae, that's really nothing new, right? They're just segments, and then at one point, we would define them, and we would give them names, and we would attach pictures to them, and we thought that we were being very clever. But traditionally, we always conceived of personae as static, and that is the thing that has really changed. Nothing is static anymore, and customers have high expectations. They are empowered. They have knowledge. I mean, not just because of social media. Customers could be more aware of promotions or problems or even competing products than we'd like. And expectations carry over from one industry to another. So, you could be a bank, but actually customers will compare you to Amazon and others that do a digital customer experience really well. Everyone expects what I like to call instant gratification or instant outcomes. I do believe customers are fair in the sense that they don't necessarily expect the best customer experience because they realize that it's expensive to provide and they themselves are not willing to pay for that. But speed is always an expectation. So, I'd argue that digitization, which I define as applying digital technology to processes, that's largely behind us. And that takes care of speed. But then digitalization, which would be doing something useful with that data, that is still a formidable challenge. And that is where, in my opinion, Evolv comes in. Now, for this reason, we have awarded, Frost & Sullivan has given our 2020 Technology Innovation Leadership Award for Customer Experience Optimization to Evolv. And, remember I said in the beginning, don't overthink it. Do something straightforward that'll provide immediate benefits. And in my view, in my analysis, that's what Evolv is all about. So really discovering and perfecting more winning ideas for straightforward CX improvement. That goes a long way towards addressing revenue leakages, harvesting the quick gains, and ultimately catalyzing growth. And in my opinion, compared to the competition, Evolv does a better job of minimizing revenue leakages and time to revenue, which is also important. It kind of narrows the gap between what you might call having a good idea and making money from it, and it more readily identifies problems that might cause friction or result in customer frustration or anxiety or wasted time and unfulfilled journeys. And really a winning idea could be as simple as suggesting the next best action, inspiring customers to move forward through the buying process, or removing unnecessary steps. And that's actually a really, really big problem, having too many steps in the buying process that'll cause some customers to abandon their cart. So I believe Evolv offers a creative and innovative solution to this one challenge that so many enterprises still fail to tackle effectively. We also like the way Evolv takes ownership of its client success by training them and fully running their first project. So in other words, Evolv practices what it preaches, which is great. And we believe Evolv has excellent potential to grow further as long as it stays true to its value proposition and does not become a commoditized software provider like the competition. So the CX optimization space will be top of mind for organizations over the next 5 years. Not just businesses, not just enterprises, but even the public sector. Everyone will need to deal with and improve their digital customer experience. And we expect a substantial number of enterprises in Evolv's target segment to invest in CX optimization for the first time, and existing clients to increase investment within the next 5 years. So Congratulations, it is really well deserved.
Thank you very much, Alex, and we're really humbled and honored by this award. All right, we're going to move on and have now Michael take us through some observations about the industry and what we see happening today. So Michael, take it away.
Okay. Let's give it just a second here to, there we go. Okay. Thank you as well, Alex. We're really proud of the recognition for all the hard work the team's done, and we appreciate the award very much. So just for a little context, A/B testing has been around as a major underpinning of experimentation since around 1753. It's not a new idea. It's certainly not a new technology in terms of the concepts. Today, many companies, including the largest tech firms like Google and Facebook and Amazon, all use testing to transform experiences in the hopes of increasing performance and making more money tied to their business strategies. And there are really three key stages of this, and each of them relies heavily on people. The first one is decision making, using data to help decide what to test and where to test. The second one is innovation, and this is really leading with the idea that you can run impactful experiments that are going to drive significant business results. And then finally, experimentation is all about risk mitigation management, finding ways to run experiments while not doing damage to your existing experience. The challenge with this model is that each of the components is costly and time constrained. Data collection is costly. You have limitations as to how many experiments you can run concurrently. And experimenting means you have less time to actually take advantage of the winning ideas that you develop. In other words, it takes too long to deliver real results for your business. So moving on, I want to share a few observations that we've had. The first one is COVID-19, and I'm going to use the C word, Alex, sorry. We certainly have not finished seeing the full impact of COVID. It's nearly wiped out entire business models and forced many, many companies to adapt. Almost every business has been directly impacted by COVID. The customer experience has been reshaped in so many ways, and we continue to see new buying experiences, from delivery to curbside pickup to major impacts on supply chain as demand for items such as disinfectants and others continue to cripple the delivery chains. Even companies with strong online presences have had to adapt to whole new categories of customers now wanting to use their services. As Alex mentioned, many older customers are now shopping on the web for the first time, and this is forcing companies to think differently about their user experience. The increasing complexity of the user journey and the speed at which this adoption is happening is putting a big toll on companies as they try to adapt to meet the ever-changing needs of their consumers. So observation 2, we've seen 3 different types of responses to the challenges that COVID has brought into the market. The first one is early movers. At times like these, companies that are forward-thinking really accelerate their efforts and try to move ahead of their competitors and increase their pace of innovation. These include companies like Best Buy, Verizon, and Instacart, just to name a few. The second group is cautiously optimistic firms. These are ones that may have had plans for digital innovation in their business strategies, but they've slowed down their efforts a little bit, and in some cases, they may have halted them temporarily. We're now seeing many of these companies come back to understanding that they really need to put their efforts back into accelerating their experience plans. And many of them are even doubling down and going faster than they might have planned earlier. And then finally, we see some laggards. These are companies that continue to delay their plans for digital innovation. We've seen many companies dealing with increases in business, but not driving the kind of innovation that really needs to happen to improve their customer experience. Grocery chains is a good example. Many of them have focused extremely heavily on logistics because they're getting a lot of business to their websites today, but they haven't thought as much about the customer experience and how to improve that concurrently. The challenge for these companies is that they're going to quickly find themselves at a serious disadvantage to the companies in the first 2 categories. So moving on to the third observation here. This leads me to our third observation, which is that all companies need to prioritize digital transformation now. We know most companies have long-term plans, and many of these plans get delayed through the normal course of business. As we've seen with the laggards, the risk of falling helplessly behind is very real and should not be ignored. Short-term gains and success cannot keep you from seeing how profoundly business models have been changed, and many of these changes are here to stay for the long term. In many ways, there is a new bar being set, and companies unable to transform will likely find it hard to succeed and stay relevant. This is a clear case for why AI should be a major building block to help companies remain competitive and continue to optimize their customer experiences in the face of rapidly evolving dynamics. And then finally, some thoughts for the holidays. I wanted to bring these observations into focus and challenge everybody here to think about the upcoming holiday season and how prepared you are. There's no doubt that a new baseline has been set, and we know customers are unforgiving for those unable to meet their expectations. Companies who are still figuring out how to deliver new digital experiences just a few months ago will no longer get a pass if their competitors offer a better experience. This means companies also need to rethink their traditional model of stopping any and all innovation heading into the holidays. This approach is deeply tied to the history of experimentation and an old perspective based on how long it takes to implement strategies and capabilities and the disruptions that they may have had on their other systems. This thinking is simply flawed and stuck in the past. There are new AI-based solutions which can be quickly and easily implemented and can deliver immediate impact on your business, as well as continuing to point the way to maximizing your results, even for this holiday season and beyond. Steve and Tyler are going to dive deeper into Evolv and how we can help solve these problems for you. And I'll turn it over to Steve.
Hi, good morning. Thanks so much. So we're out there talking to digital leaders every day, CMOs, chief digital officers, heads of product, heads of e-commerce, and they're looking at these incredibly daunting targets. Now, digital is supposed to be the growth engine, but you look forward at these targets and are under pressure to deliver huge numbers. Digital leaders are spending huge amounts of money on Facebook and Google to drive traffic to their properties, but in some cases, Facebook and Google are making more money than they are off of that investment. So they know the stats, like that you can improve conversion rates by 4x if you get customer experience right. So digital leaders are relying on their testing teams, conversion rate optimization agencies, and tools vendors, what we call the testing industrial complex, to solve that conversion problem. But that approach has not made it easier for customers to hit the buy button. It's not changed the equation for return on ad spend, and it hasn't made the forecast that digital leaders are providing to their CFOs more reliable. So now when you're deep in this world of traditional testing, it's very easy to imagine the customer experience as a choice between A or B. Is web page A better than web page B? Is mobile phone application screen A better than B? But what customers are seeing is not a choice between A and B. It's these limitless variations in millions of combinations that you use to craft a digital experience in an environment of constant change. Let's double click on that for a second. When you're building a digital experience, you have a complex set of choices that you make to convert visitors. It may be visual design, the imagery and text you choose, the flow, the page flow of your site and how many pages are involved in a transaction, the search functionality and navigation and page prioritization, and everything else that goes into the look and feel and capabilities of your experience. To make matters worse, the ideal experience will change over time in response to outside events. So maybe your competitor launches a free trial, or the seasons change and it's time for, like Michael said, Black Friday. Or you get hit by a global pandemic, and all of a sudden your site, which used to be popular with Gen Xers and millennials, is getting a huge influx of traffic from baby boomers. Now, meanwhile, web conversion rates are hovering around 3%, where Amazon is getting 13% or 74% for Prime members. So there is plenty of room to improve. Our message to digital leaders is quite simple. The testing industrial complex has failed you. You could keep feeding that beast, but we all know what Einstein said about doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. This digital experience has nearly limitless variations. To find that one experience that reduces friction, that inspires action, that gets your customer to hit the buy button, you really are looking for a needle in a haystack. And that's what Evolv does. We find the needle, that one customer experience that gets your customer to hit that buy button faster and more often. Let's talk a little bit about how we do it. There are three main pillars to our solution. The first is defining your optimization strategy. So we work directly with digital leaders and with their teams to define conversion goals, identify the barriers to meeting those conversion goals, and then finding the opportunities for improvement. The second is that we're generating a constant influx of new ideas. Now, you may have talked to agencies or experts in this space about ideation before, but we take a very different approach to how we do ideation. We're doing what we call ideation at AI scale. So an ideation program that is designed to let artificial intelligence quickly determine which combination of ideas contributes to conversion. And this allows us to be much bolder and more innovative in the efforts to improve customer experience. And the third is where our core differentiator really lies, and that is our technology. Evolv leverages our own proprietary artificial intelligence technology to find that best customer journey. So let me turn it over to Tyler, and he can show you how it works.
Great, thanks, Steve. So I'm going to be talking through a series of slides that you can sort of think of as a demo, but it will drill a little bit more into our process and how the system is working under the covers, as well as giving some time travel. So first, I'm going to call out this the sample site that we're using for this this walkthrough is T-Mobile. They're not a customer, but this experiment is based on real experiment results with real customers. So I'll be walking through those in more detail. So first, I want to start with the strategy. The strategy and roadmap are some of the most important pieces to a successful experimentation program. Often you find people exploring kind of vanity metrics and changes that will not drive real business results. And so first we advise our customers on how to identify good opportunities for optimization and how to deliver the best business impact that you can from an experimentation program, which feeds into a better outcome from really any experimentation program, but ours specifically, because it is so there's so many ideas at play and so much learning going on. So here you can see that the checkout that we're going to be the checkout funnel that we're going to be optimizing is 3 pages. You'll see that we have high drop-off in product details and cart. And so being able to optimize not just for for a single page or a single action, but we're going to be looking at this entire funnel as a single unit of optimization that we'll be working on over time. The really important thing is that we're able to come up with ideas that will unlock users from the product details page, which will then allow people to move more easily into the cart page and then on to checkout, increasing the amount of traffic available to experiment on. So here, once we've come up with the strategy and we know exactly what KPI we really need to drive and optimize, we then create what we refer to as a search space, which is not a single experiment, but actually a collection of experiments to advance the users through the funnel in the most efficient way, both by reducing friction as well as promoting activity. So this is done using both ideas from our customers, but also a lot of our own proprietary user experience research, which is based on both best practices as well as a lot of cognitive research and user experience research that we've done internally over thousands of these sort of optimizations. You'll also see that basically we have 8 separate experiments, which make up a total of 25 total variants. The reason that we're able to do this, to run so many experiments at the same time as part of the same search space, is really because of the AI engine. So the system uses traffic extremely efficiently, far more efficiently than traditional approaches, as well as mitigating the downside of bad ideas in real time. And so through this, we're able to, through this efficiency, we're able to explore more than just the simple kind of best practices that you might otherwise explore, but you're actually able to go above and beyond the best practices and get into higher risk, more or higher potential ideas that could have really big, significant impact that you might not be able to explore based on the traffic requirements in other cases, or the risk in traditional approaches of getting to statistical significance. It also opens up the opportunity to explore much smaller ideas, little changes, CTA text and headline text and things, where it might not have been worth the traffic to explore those ideas, but because it's so efficient with the way that it applies traffic, we're able to explore both the high potential, high risk ideas, as well as the little ideas that you might not otherwise think of. As you can see, this will produce 62,208 possible experiences that a user might be exposed to, and so through this AI process, we're able to explore and understand what the optimal solution is within that search space, which is far larger than any search space that you could get through in a sort of traditional experimentation program. But due to the technology backing the solution, we're able to move through that, which I'll walk you through over the next slide. So once this optimization is launched and these experiments are all running concurrently across your user base, we're in a great situation. So basically what we're doing is we're learning from the user's behavior and allowing that to lead us to the best experience. So the customer's responses to the ideas allow us to train our statistical and machine learning models. And from that, we can start to predict what that optimal experience is, what the optimal solution is, based on the segment that we're trying to optimize for. The customer's interaction and our response to it, we call active learning. So basically, it allows us to adapt to the customer experience, honing in on the optimal experience and delivering results in real time. So rather than experimentation costing you money, it's actually driving more revenue during that process. So here we can look at this, the results of this experiment. So, you know, overall through this optimization process, we were able to drive revenue up by by 7%. So this experiment this series of experiments didn't actually cost you money as it normally would, but instead delivered 7% additional revenue. So for the experiment that this was based on, that actually equated to almost $700,000 in additional revenue over the weeks that it ran. But more importantly, you can see we found a top performing combination of ideas, and the top performing combination of ideas has proven out to deliver an 11% performance gain over control. So if you take the learnings from this optimization and you continue to play that out over the year, that will result in $31 million in additional revenue. Again, this is based on real results from real experiment. So let's take a deeper dive. So the system not only tells you what the best combination is that it found, or what the you know, how much money you made over time, but it also gives you much deeper insights into the performance of individual ideas, the performance of each idea, how it's contributing to those combinations. You can, from the system, derive which ideas are working well together and which ones are not. And more importantly, you can do this by segment. So you're able to set up an optimization against a segment and deliver the best experience for each segment within your customer base. As you can see here, you know, changing the CTA text gave a pretty good lift, but really the big impact came from the from some experimentation around where a credit check is done within that funnel, within that process. Now this is really important because you know, this is one of those insights that oftentimes people don't explore as deeply, or potentially over as many different variations of it. You might think, well, maybe I can move it here, or maybe I can move it here. But through the system and the way that it functions, we're able to actually identify not just whether or not moving it to before the credit card information is the best option, but we're able to find where is the best location for it within the overall funnel, and that allowed us to find this opportunity where we're driving a significant amount of the returns for the site by finding the right location for this. Importantly, once the credit check location is found, this can create problems for your end users. And so when a person is going to buy a phone or a product, and they're expecting to have their credit check go through, and the credit check doesn't pass, this creates an opportunity for new learnings, because at this point, the user would normally just leave the site. But once you've identified that there's an opportunity here to say, like, okay, credit check hasn't worked out, let's fall back to a prepaid plan or something that's more viable for their economic situation, we're able to then put another optimization in place to find the best way to rescue those customers and make sure that they get connected with the products and services that they need. So with that, we can set up a new search space and a new opportunity to increase revenue, to connect customers with the products and services that they need, and that can feed into another process where we're able to basically provide them new opportunities to create new optimizations, new strategies, new search spaces that will continue to increase their revenue over time. So with that, I will turn it back over to John.
Excellent. Thanks very much, Tyler. All right, Steve.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess we just wanted to talk a little bit about a couple of customer experiences. We're so honored with this award from Frost & Sullivan, but in so many ways, this is an award and recognition from our customers. Just to give you a couple of examples, one wireless communication provider we work with is getting literally tens of millions in incremental online sales. And that's directly as a result of our partnership with them and Evolv-led optimizations. We're also fortunate to be working with one of the major travel and tourism providers who is ironically not as impacted as so many others by the current crisis because so much of their business is outdoors and in parks, and they've more than doubled online bookings, again, directly as a result of Evolv-led optimizations. We are really talking about solutions that directly contribute to customer revenue and move the needle on the bottom line. So again, I really want to thank Alex and the whole Frost & Sullivan team for this recognition on behalf of us and on behalf of all of our customers. John?
Perfect. And then just a reminder to everybody, feel free to put some questions into the chat for our speakers. We've had some questions come in, but hope to get a couple more. And we'll just have Alex kind of close out for us with some final comments. Oh, Alex, you're on mute. Hang on. There you go. All right, here you go, Alex.
Naughty you had muted me. So I said that I thought the case studies Steve just presented spoke for themselves. And, you know, I say it a lot, but I'll say it again, don't overthink it, deal with the obvious stuff. And one of the things that are not great about kind of traditional A/B testing is that it is very human. It is very corporate, and it is very biased. And I mean, not to mention the fact that you end up with massive discussions inside your organization because it's kind of a manually curated experience by humans. It's never going to be any better than the knowledge that the couple of humans who are involved have managed to accumulate. But what if you could let an AI-based solution do it for you? There is no way that a human being could ever, you know, consider as many parameters, as many case studies as an AI-based tool can. So, you know, absolutely, from my perspective, this is the way forward, and the benefits are really, really obvious.
All right, thank you again, Alex. So now let's move into the Q&A. And again, there's still time for us to take some more questions. So feel free, and then we should be able to wrap up on time. So let's see, looking at the Q&A. Alex, we'll start with you. You talked about 5 trillion not converted. Do customers go and spend that money elsewhere? And why do they typically abandon a purchase?
Right, interesting. So, yeah, a lot of them do go and spend that money elsewhere. So we don't believe that absolutely all the revenue is recoverable, but you know, we estimate that about 2/3 is, meaning that the customer is genuinely wanting to make a purchase, and the customer is not put off by price. Obviously, if it's about the price and it's cheaper somewhere else, well then there's not a lot your optimized customer experience can do about that. But you know, as I said in the beginning, price, product, they're all the same now. So what we have found, so I work a lot in the airline space, for example. Well, maybe I should say worked, because it's kind of gone down the drain. But I've done a number of projects on merchandising techniques, which is really just a fancy way of saying how do you make passengers spend more money after they've bought the ticket. And what we found every time is that unless you optimize the primary interface, which for an airline is generally the web page, then you can forget about everything. Nothing else matters. It's like it is the one thing that will really positively affect your results. And it can be a lot of very, very silly mistakes that create anxiety, such as if you're buying a ticket and then you move to the next step in the process. If you then forget to put a little window in the corner that reminds people what they're actually paying for, that'll cause a lot of customers to stop right there, because there's this sort of moment of uncertainty. Am I buying the right ticket, right? And unless you look at all these all this detail, there's so many parameters that against no investment at all, or hardly any investment at all, you can optimize, and the result will be massive. So again, we think 2/3 of the lost revenue could be recovered if only organizations would optimize the experience.
Well, that's pretty impressive. I mean, that's a huge amount of revenue. So I will. There were a bunch of questions that came in as a result of Michael's session or section of it. So I'll ask you, Michael, and you, Steve, because we highlighted Verizon and Best Buy as good examples, and the questions basically are honing in on what do we think they're doing to improve the customer experience that's making them successful. So yeah, Michael, we start with you.
I'll start. Yeah, both of them have been very forward-looking companies for many years and very innovative, and platforms to really help improve customer experiences. In the case of Best Buy, they very quickly, when COVID hit, adopted a much more flexible delivery system, allowing for curbside pickup amongst all of their stores almost immediately, really within about a week and a half, 2 weeks. They also instituted a number of improvements on their websites to make it really clear to customers what their options were for delivery, including same-day delivery, next-day delivery, nationwide, which was a big investment for them. And they made it very intuitive and easy to understand your options on both their website and their mobile apps. In the case of Verizon, they've really focused on finding ways to streamline and clean up their customer journey through checkout and cart, and finding ways to remove distractions and make it easier for customers to achieve their goal, whether it's signing up for a second line or purchasing a new phone, and just trying to remove distraction and clutter from the experience while still maintaining the breadth of services that they're offering. And Steve, do you have some things you'd like to add?
Well, the only thing I'd say is across all of our customers, what characterizes them is a really embracing the idea that if you can improve customer experience, you can improve the outcomes, and that means a constant search for and investment in improving that experience. And the ones that I think have that outlook and that attitude, it pays off in really incredible results.
Yeah, and I guess Michael, feel free I'm sorry, Alexander, feel free to jump in, especially since you have more of a European perspective on this as well. I mean, who do you see is kind of leading the way, and what's making them successful?
Well, sometimes it's not who you expect. So we talked about Verizon, right? That's a very good example, and we had T-Mobile before. That's a very good example of companies that have razor-thin margins, where any optimization will have a massive improvement. So over here, so I'm based in London, England. We have an online supermarket chain called Ocado. apparently that doesn't mean anything. It's kind of play on the word avocado. And what's interesting about it is, well, it's an online supermarket, which again, it's the same stuff you buy, right? So how do you differentiate that? Well, what's different about Ocado is that it was actually born as a technology company. So it's kind of a technology platform with a supermarket that wraps around rather than the other way around. And so they always live up to their promises. They're never out of stock. And again, you think about it, that's so simple, right? Of course, they shouldn't be out of stock, but some of the other supermarkets that have done it the other way around, where the digital service is an overlay on the kind of the traditional shopping experience that, you know, hasn't fundamentally changed in 150 years. Maybe they provided what to you as the customer looks like a very fancy digital interface, but really all it does is generate a message to someone at your closest store to pick whatever it is that you've ordered off a shelf, if it happens to be there. And so, you know, they will always be out of stock with certain things. So, you know, I think Ocado is a really, really good example of how you can get this right by focusing on the digital experience.
Very good. Tyler, there were a couple of technical questions that came in. So I'll add the first one, which is, I think people wanted to get a better understanding of how we're able to add ideas on the fly.
Sure. Yeah, so I think that's a really interesting aspect of the system. The way that our statistical models and machine learning algorithms are implemented, we're actually able to control for the variance created by the other, the variants created by the other variants or ideas in the search space. And so when we're going through the process and learning about the individual performance of each of the ideas, when we add a new one on top of it, we're actually building on top of those learnings. And so the idea is evaluated against what we know about customer behavior to that point, as well as what the current optimal solution is, and looks for opportunities to raise that optimal solution even further. So by controlling for the variance generated by the other ideas, we're able to isolate the performance of an individual idea and know how best to apply it.
Okay, and I think this led right into the next question, which is this concept of cumulative learnings and how we're able to leverage history of what's happened before.
Yeah, so the optimizations are able to continuously adapt. So as user behavior changes, as new ideas are added, as seasons change, the system is able to see ideas that have worked previously that ended up not working in the end, or vice versa, things that didn't work originally, but are performing better during a specific season or event, and sort of resample them to be able to benefit from what was learned previously, as well as generate new learnings about kind of the context and opportunities in which, you know, rather than just trying to decide if the idea is binary good or bad, understanding in what situation it is the optimal idea, it is the part of the optimal solution.
Excellent. Thanks, Tyler. And then Steve, I think this will be the last question. When you were talking about some of the successes, somebody asked, how quickly are we able to realize some of those gains mentioned?
Oh, yeah, it's a great question. 30 days. We typically have scaled an initial optimization and the number of variants that we'll be exploring by the time a customer signs with us. It's usually 30, maybe 45 days out. And after that time, during that time, they've usually already paid for their investment up to that point. So it's an incredibly fast time to value and fast payback period.
Yeah, and then try to compare that to the traditional corporate way of doing things, right? Where you'll have meetings and committees, and they'll try to second guess, and maybe 6 months later, they actually make a change.
No, very, very well said, and I think that is one of the big values of Evolv. So with that, I would like to thank all of you who participated in the webinar, especially you, Alexander, and then all of you attendees. Once again, this was recorded and will be available inside of a day on our website for on demand. Once again, thank you and stay safe out there.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.